Now, the tightest of tonight's three races is expected to be the vote in the Montreal riding of Terrebonne. You see there the candidates, at least those with representation in the House, ready their parties. There are 48 candidates in total running, but the ones we're really watching out for tonight are Nathalie Sinclair-Desganet from the Bloc Québécois and Tatiana Auguste from the Liberal Party. And to talk about this, we're now joined in Montreal by Martin Patriquin, Quebec correspondent for the Logic, and in Ottawa, polls analyst Eric Grenier, founder and writer of the Writ. Hello to you both.
Hello.
Hey there, how you doing, Michael?
I'm good. Good to see you. Listen, Martin, I'm going to actually begin with you because Terrebonne, for people who know, did go back and forth in last year's election. Eventually, it was declared a Liberal win by one vote. So how much of a nail-biter do you think it's going to be tonight?
I think it's going to be, I think the Liberals are going to win, frankly. And for a variety of reasons that we can get into. But I think it's going to be, I think it'll be closer than put it this way, I think it's going to be closer than the ones in Ontario, which are pretty safe Liberal seats. The interesting thing for me is, like, everybody talks about that one vote win, which is probably the closest election we've ever had in this country. But people don't talk about so much what Tatiana Auguste's, what she did in 2025. There was a 9-point swing from the Bloc Québécois, or sorry, from other parties to the Liberals in 2025, which shows me that the party has a lot of momentum in there. And I think that's something that they're going to be able to build on tonight. And probably take 3 of 3 of the by-elections coming up.
Okay, is it that momentum that you point to that leads you to conclude that the Liberals are going to win this by-election?
Well, it's momentum. It's also, look, the Liberals, by-elections sort of, as a rule, are generally like the people don't. There's not a ton of a participation. This has been interesting because there's actually been a sizable pre-vote to it, upwards of 20%, if I'm not mistaken. But what's interesting, so obviously what's really important in by-elections is get at the vote. And what the Liberals have been able to do, just because of the laws as they stand with Elections Canada, is there are 3 by-elections, and it's allowed the Liberals to basically pool the money from all 3 by-elections into one riding if they felt like it, which is exactly what they've done. They've taken the money from the safe seats in Ontario and basically poured it into here for their ground game. The other aspect of it too is, poll after poll says that the majority of Canadians want a Liberal majority, and that very much includes Quebec. There are obviously, these are by-elections. There are always sort of like local issues that come up. For example, high-speed rail, the fact that the high-speed rail, the trajectory of the route, it doesn't stop in Terrebonne, which is one of the fastest growing communities in Quebec, and that's one of the issues. But I think overall, I think this is basically I hate to use the word, but almost a referendum on the Liberal government as it stands so far. And it stands that Mr. Carney was elected basically by Quebecers because he was seen as the best sort of a wall against Donald Trump in the United States. And what was true in 2025 has by and large remained true today. So I think for all those reasons, I think the Liberals are going to do quite well tonight.
Okay, you mentioned polls, and with that, I'm going to bring in Eric Grenier here. So Eric, when you look at the numbers right now, what do they tell us? Because, demographically, historically, Terrebonne is not one that has supported the Liberals greatly in the past.
No, not at all. The Liberals won it in 2025, and it was the first time they had done so since 1980, when Pierre Trudeau won everything except one seat in Quebec. What I think is going to be really interesting about the results tonight is that based on the polls, it should remain as close as it was last time. The Liberals have about as much support as they did in Quebec in the last election. The Bloc still has about as much support as they did in the last election. So based on that, you would expect that it would still be a toss-up. So if we do end up seeing, as Marty says, that the Liberals could win this, especially based on all of the organization they put in, just the general narrative right now about the need for a majority government, or the fact that the Liberals are much more popular nationwide than they were in the last election. If we do see that the Liberals end up winning this by more than one vote, and I mean like a significantly larger margin than that, then that would suggest that all those factors played a difference. If instead we do see that it ends up being just as tight as it was in the last election, then it would suggest that the voters in the riding were voting largely along the lines of what the national trends have been. So I think that'll be the interesting thing to see, and Terrebonne will really be a good gauge of where people are now and how they kind of view the Carney government, because it is the same two major candidates, the same major two parties are in contention, unlike in Toronto.
Okay, so safe to say you think it's going to be tight.
I think that it could be tight. I think that's the big thing here. If I had to put some money down on it, and I wouldn't do that, I would probably go more where Marty is, that the Liberals would have the advantage. But again, this is a riding that is very francophone. It's not very diverse. And for that reason, it is still a very good stronghold for that nationalist sovereignist vote that the Bloc has counted on in the past.
Okay, don't put money on it because we're journalists. We don't make that much money. So listen, Martin, how important is a win in Terrebonne for the Bloc, for the Liberals? How important is it to actually take this riding, do you think, for the parties?
I think for the Bloc, it's basically for the same reasons that it's always important, is that they're a bulwark party. They're like, we best represent Quebec. So every time that they win, they get to add to that argument. Every time they lose, they take away from that argument. Losing this would be significant for them. As Eric mentioned, this is a fairly francophone, very francophone riding. The difference is there's the one thing that I think that mitigates that a little bit, and what puts it in the Liberals' favor, is that there's been massive population increase in Terrebonne over the last 15, 20 years, in part because of urban flight. People, for whatever reason, I haven't figured out why yet, want to leave Montreal and go elsewhere. One of the net beneficiaries of that has been Terrebonne. The other thing, too, that you've seen, that includes recent immigrants. So a significant size of the immigrant population. So it's while Eric is right, it's not the most diverse place on the planet. It is far more diverse today than it was even 6 or 7 years ago. Along those lines, at the very least, even if the Liberals don't pull it out tonight, sorry, I just had a call come in. That's obnoxious. Even if the Liberals don't pull it off tonight, middle and long term, I think the Liberals are much better poised in that area and the areas around it. Look, that all over the North Shore, this is happening everywhere. It's beneficial to parties where immigration is seen as a positive, not a net negative.
Okay. Listen, before you both go, I also want to get your thoughts on Quebec's new Premier, Christine Fréchette, elected yesterday to replace François Legault as leader of the Coalition Avenir Québec. She's the former Quebec Minister for the Economy, focused much of her talk last night on securing Quebec's economic future, also accusing the Parti Québécois and the Quebec Liberal Party of reviving old constitutional squabbles. I think right now the CAQ is running fourth in public opinion polls. Does Fréchette's addition or entrance as leader of that party change any type of the calculus for you, Marty?
It does. For the CAQ, or the Coalition Avenir Québec, it is better for them. She is better placed to win more votes than Bernard Drainville, her competitor. She first of all, name recognition. She's very, very well known outside the party. Not to say Bernard Drainville isn't as well, but in a good way, if I can put it this way, in a good way, she's seen as much more of a positive force within the party by Quebecers at large than Bernard Drainville was. What that means that she's probably going to be stealing nationalist votes and federalist votes. So the fact that she was elected brings the CAQ into play once again. And exactly how those votes split in the next election in October will probably decide as to who's going to be the next party. The interesting thing to me is I don't think she's going to win. I think she's a better chance of winning, but I don't think she's going to win. But I think the CAQ is suddenly very much a spoiler in a race that was pretty much a two-horse race, 3 or 4 days ago.
Eric, what do you make of the result?
Yeah, I think that what she does is that she gives the CAQ a chance of surviving this election. And Drainville, from the polls that we saw, would have put the party not fourth but fifth, and almost certainly would have wiped the party off of the electoral map. With Fréchette, the CAQ is more competitive, but they're still not very much in the race. They have half the support of either the Liberals or the PQ. But as Marty says, what's interesting about them is that, unlike Drainville, which would have really pushed voters to the Liberals, not really helped out the Parti Québécois, Fréchette is more on the federalist kind of economic side of the debate, where Drainville was more on the identity nationalist side of things. I think that what we could see is that the Liberals now have a little bit more competition for that vote that doesn't want a referendum, but does just kind of want economic stewardship of the province. I still think that it is a two-party race. The CQ at best is at least competitive. They're in the race in the sense that they could win some seats, but Fréchette has a huge margin to overcome to even get into the running to hope for being reelected. I think the odds are she'll be a premier for about 6 months. But at least she gives the CEQ a chance to live to see another day, because they were on track to going down to 0 seats and probably going extinct.
Okay, well, the Quebec provincial election not till the fall, and of course the by-elections are this evening. We're going to watch those very closely. Martin, Eric, thank you for this. Appreciate the time this evening.
All right, thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.